Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. Holy cow, are you in for a treat? Because this woman is fire. So Esther Stanhope is so many things. She's an author. She's a talent helper, but she's really the impact guru. She is a live show TV personality to the tune of thousands of hours. She's an interviewer extraordinaire. She's interviewed people like George Clooney and Madonna and Kate Winslet. But she's also the mom of a 16-year-old who, on the day we're recording this, is turning 16. She baked him a cake because she's a domestic goddess, obviously. She's also a recently diagnosed ADHD queen who considers herself a fun seeker. And even though she's neurodivergent, that's what her superpower is. She plays the ukulele, used to play the saxophone, and today she is our guest on Productive Joy. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you for having me. Oh my goodness. When you say all that stuff, I think I really want to meet that person. I can't believe it's me. It's like, I don't feel like I'm that, I'm not that good, but actually it sounds pretty good on paper, right?
Good. Well, and that's the whole thing that you and I talked about before we hit record. And that's the fact that imposter syndrome still creeps in even when we're fantastic. Esther, you're fantastic. You've done some big girl things, but you still have that moment. And I'm going to guess our listeners can relate to that, right? Like, I know I'm okay, but I'm not that great. Would you tell them something that would convince them that actually they are pretty great and they should let themselves be?
Absolutely. I mean, when you were saying all that, I was thinking my imposter was on my shoulder going, ha, you're not really that good, are you? It's always there. I think it's about living with the imposter, living with the doubt, living with the voice of doubt. I call it the VOD. You have your VOD on your shoulder. I name mine. I always think it's a good idea to name your VOD or voice of doubt. I call mine, for some reason, Cynical Cyril.
Cynical Cyril.
Cynical Cyril. I'm like Cyril because Cyril's like a funny name. And I don't know why it's a man. Maybe because I was brought up with 4 brothers. I don't know. But Cynical Cyril sits there and he's like, yeah, but she's saying that you're brilliant. And, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not that good. I'm not that good. And then I have to just say, hey, Cyril, can you just shut up a minute?
Yeah.
I was going to say,
just look him off your shoulder. Yeah.
Get off my shoulder, because I have done all those things. It's true. None of it's a lie. I'm not a fake. I'm not a fraud. However, I did spend most of my career, we were discussing this earlier, being the person getting the interview because their voice was being recorded, not mine. I used to edit my voice out. So yes, I did interview George Clooney. Hi, guys. Hi. He's like so cool. I interviewed George Clooney a long time ago when he was on ER.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, literally, it was when he first became famous. And just a very quick story about the George Clooney thing. I was very early on in my career. I was there with a microphone just to get his voice on tape, not my voice, his voice. I was paid very little money. I would think I was even an intern. So it was just a case of me shoving the microphone under his mouth so I could get a soundbite from George Clooney. I just remember he'd come to London to promote ER.
Oh my gosh.
We all turned up at the, was it the Hard Rock Cafe? That's it. We all turned up at the Hard Rock Cafe in London, round the corner from this radio studio, because I worked in this place called Virgin Radio. And there's a whole bunch of paparazzi and some film crew and some other radio people with microphones and photographers. We're all hanging around, and the women of the group were saying, oh, do you like George Clooney? He's got really dreamy eyes. Oh, he's so gorgeous. Oh, I wouldn't kick him out of bed. And then the cameramen are like, oh, they're always late. These Hollywood stars, all the celebrities, always late. Oh, typical, always running late. And then the guy that was having a cup of coffee with a baseball hat, sitting right in amongst us, just turned around and took his hat off and went, hi guys. Yeah, I'm George Clooney. It's me. I heard every word.
Oh no. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So the moral of the story is George Clooney is just a human being and doesn't really look that good looking when he's sitting with a baseball cap. We didn't even know he was there.
Oh my
goodness.
Be
visible at the same time as being a Hollywood star.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I did get the good soundbite. I didn't have my voice on it. I edited myself out and my giggles. And I spent most of my time in radio and television, because I worked at the BBC for many years as well, for 10 years. I spent most of my time avoiding the spotlight. So I know what it's like to be in the spotlight. I know how to help people to be brilliant, but I only really got into the spotlight when I left the BBC to set up my own business. And I find it really hard. And if you feel like, oh, could I do that? Can I go in the spotlight? Can I get that promotion? I know how that feels. I still struggle on a daily basis.
Yeah. But that's what you do, is you help people put themselves in the spotlight, right? And Ed Milet has a great podcast, and he says that we are best equipped to help the person we used to be, right? So it makes so much sense that you would be excellent at what you do because you've been doing that, but you were that person. You were that person behind the person who got people to shine. And now you are doing exactly that because that was you. How cool is that?
I'm loving it. Look, I'm actually writing. I'm not ignoring you.
Oh, I know you were writing it down because it's worth
I'm
it.
writing that down. That is such a good quote.
Yeah.
I am going to worship that person. I'm going to quote that.
Yep. Go listen to Ed Milet. And he doesn't know that I'm a big fan and listener, but you could maybe tag him in something and say, hey, by the way, Christy really likes you.
I'm going to say we were talking about you. Were your ears burning?
Yes, exactly.
I love that. You're best equipped to help the person you used to be.
Mm-hmm. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that kind of makes me sad as well, sort of emotional. Because when I think the person I used to be, I mean, it's not that sad, but I suppose I'm a recent ADHD, an ADHD, I don't know what you call it in your part.
I don't know what you call it either. I am a recent, I don't know. You've recently been told that.
I'm a recently diagnostic. You're a doctor. I don't know what to say.
How did you figure that out? Like, did somebody say, hey, maybe you should be tested for this? Or did your doctor notice? Like, what happened?
I think you have conversations with people. You meet people that have been diagnosed. You misunderstand what it is. I mean, I didn't even know. I thought it was naughty boys in school, PhD, climbing the walls, people with too much energy. And I've never been naughty. I haven't been a naughty school girl. I was a good girl. I'm high functioning. I worked really hard. I got my exams. I am semi-dyslexic, but I read and really had to work really hard. I can read really slowly, but I have to read it 5 times to get it in my head. But I still did A levels, which is quite a high level of exam in the UK. I did a degree. I've got a BA honours, a 2-1 in drama and communication studies, which I got no idea how I accomplished that. But again, you can hear I almost dismiss my accomplishments. I think, oh yeah, but I had to work really hard. And I suppose I was struggling and masking and struggling. I just thought I was a little bit slow. I found it difficult to catch on to things. I never really gave myself credit for being really good at certain things. For example, having fun, and my brain sparks, having ideas, being able to come up with stuff just like you and the way that you came up with the intro, having just spoken to me. I was like, she is slick.
Yeah, that's just fun for me. But and maybe that's my ADHD coming out too, right? So I've not ever been diagnosed, but I definitely have noticed later in years how my brain is constantly doing this. And I'm of an age, I think that you might be similar in that range where you just behaved yourself, right? Like nobody diagnosed anything. It was just to stay in your box and be normal, whatever normal was. And people, really prided themselves on that normalcy. So we all tried to be the same. And the reality is we are so different, and every one of us needs something different. So my kids are 25. You mentioned that you have a 16-year-old. Happy birthday.
Oh, and a 20-year-old. Yeah.
And a 20-year-old. Okay. So mine, I'm very efficient. So I had a boy-girl set of twins and, 1 pregnancy, 2 babies. It was great. And knowing how different they are, right? They are such different human beings. And they shared a womb. So to say that everybody's the same is a silly statement, but we do try to paint people into a corner and say, this is who you're supposed to be. And I think what you've discovered, Esther, and what you help people discover is your uniqueness is what makes you brilliant. And going out and finding that and doing that is what makes you visible. So let's talk about Visibly Brilliant.
Yes.
You have a new book.
Yes, Visibly Brilliant is my latest book. It's my second book. My first book was about public speaking, Goodbye Glossophobia, Banish Your Fear of Public Speaking. My second book is like this. It's like the part 2 of the public speaking was about the fear of being in the spotlight, the fear of, I was terrible at public speaking before. I didn't like the sensation of having all the eyes on me. I
Mhm.
really struggled. And when I set my own business up, which is relatively recently, it was after having an entire career in television and radio and the BBC and as a producer, I set my business up to help people to be brilliant. What I found was very soon after setting my own business up to help others, people started saying, now can you talk? Can you speak? Can you speak at the event? Can you do the conference? And I'd say, oh yeah, I can I can help you with your speech. We can work together. And they'd say, no, can you speak? And I remember thinking, oh,
That's not what this was supposed to be about.
oh, but of course if you work in television and radio, and I've done drama my whole life, obviously you will have the experience of doing things like voiceovers and doing
Sure.
the odd presenting thing, which I really hated. However, it was never really my love. I love helping other people to be brilliant. So people started asking me to speak. So the first book was about just that awful fear. I mean, it's not a new concept of, a fate worse than
Sure.
death.
Sure.
But I had quite a lot of fun with that, and I had fun, sharing my experience of how I used to fail and how I got over the fear. So Visibly Brilliant is really about the fear of being visible, not just on a stage. It's not about a performance. It's not about showbiz. I know you're from a showbiz
Yeah.
background. It's actually about being visibly brilliant in your field, in your job, in your career. Because if people don't know who you are, you're not going to get promoted.
No.
You're not going to get the opportunities.
Mhm.
Things don't land in your lap. People need to know who you are and why you're good. What I find is, because I coach a lot of leaders, a lot of teams, I coach a lot of women in leadership, a lot of people from a diverse background. And it's not only diverse people or women that struggle with this, but they pretty much resonate with the concept of being an invisible superhero. Superhero that works all the hours, over delivers. I call that the overdose, the OD, over delivering, like overdosing. They overdose with the work. They're pulling everything together. They work, they're loyal, they work the hour, they're thinking, oh, well, if I do, my work speaks for itself. But then what happens is that somebody else gets promoted because they just speak up more in a meeting.
Yeah.
Or they appear more confident. So Visibly Brilliant really it's aimed at the former me, which was so brilliant, but not celebrated really, because you're behind the scenes. And I was purposely putting myself behind the scenes. So that's why I wrote Visibly Brilliant. And it's all about the concept of the book. It's all about the difference between showing off and being a big mouth and look at me speaking in the meeting. Look how clever I am. It's about the difference between showing off and sharing. Oh, I've got a really good idea. Let me share what I've learnt. Let me add to your comment. Let me share this insight. Let me share this story. Let me share my suffering with you when I was on the stage, desperately trying to do some public speaking and failing terribly. Let me share with you how I felt. Let me share how awful it was. Let me share with you how I lost my confidence and how I built it up. Let me share it, not let me show off and say, look how confident I am.
Well, and first of all, I love the distinction. And I'm thinking about people that I'm in meetings with and conversations that I've had. And I think there's a distinct difference in how people show up. Some of them are there to show off, right? And they think that's what's going to get them noticed. But what actually gets you noticed is when you're a value add, when what you're sharing is relevant, when how you're saying it is going to benefit someone else. And so that's the distinction that I see that I think is so powerful, is when you are showing up to show off, it is all about you, right? Like it's all about I. And when you're showing up to share, then it's all about the we, right? Like we can. So I interviewed a guy recently that his name's Kyle McDowell, and he was a CEO of multiple companies. He was a big deal, right? And he knew he was a big deal, and he was showing up to show off, and he realized it and said, I don't want to be that person anymore. So he quit his job, and 11 days later, somebody asked him to come work somewhere else. So he failed at failing for a minute, but he decided to show up completely differently the second time. And he changed everything to a we concept instead of a me concept. And I think that fits beautifully in Visibly Brilliant, because we are better together. and I bring what I bring and you bring what you bring, but together, that's like the Avengers, right? Like, so going back to your superhero analogy, if it's me showing up as the visible superhero, I need other superheroes around me who have different talents so that we can be the Avengers. And that's what you're helping people do. Oh my goodness, Esther.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You're absolutely right. It is the difference between me and we. And when you actually look in the dictionary, what's the difference between showing off and sharing? It's exactly that. Sharing, we all benefit. It's about portioning things out. A share is a portion. So you have some, I have some, they have some. We split it up and we all take a piece. It's a win-win. We have a piece of cake, eat. We all share a piece of cake. Whereas showing off is, when you look it up in the dictionary, it's like self-gratification. There's no benefit for the other people at all. It's totally narcissistic. It's selfish. And here's the thing, when it comes to today's digital world, and everyone's talking about AI and TikTok and LinkedIn and whatever there is out there, Instagram, and there's all this social media, and everyone talks about social media. Everyone talks about the fact that people are sharing and showing off, and there's so many show-offs everywhere. There's so much noise and there's so much chatter. People who are invisibly brilliant, so my invisible superheroes, and they're my readers, they're the people I'm aiming my book at, I'm sharing my book with, they think, oh no, I can't stand LinkedIn, I can't stand social media, I don't like influencers, I'm not an influencer, I don't do selfies, I don't show off. So the problem is that a lot of people who are what I would call the visibles, so the visibles are the ones that go, I'm so honored by my award. Look at me. Oh, and yes, it's all my team did it, not me. Oh, but I'm in the spotlight, not my team. So the visibles are putting the invisibles in the shade by making it look really icky. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Naff, icky. I don't know what word do you use? Like
gross, just gross. I just call it gross. Like that was gross.
Yeah, so it's like, it's gross. It's ew. Who wants to be like that? So what I find is, and in my research, I did ask a lot of my clients, and I work in a lot of professional services organizations. I work with a lot of accountants. I work with a lot of data analysts and people that work in risk and law. Those kind of technical people, they're my main client base. So when I ask them, so why don't you get yourself out there more? Why aren't you getting your voice heard more? And they quite often say, apart from perfectionism and imposter syndrome, which is also very popular, but one of the most popular answers that they give is, I'm not one of them. I don't be one of them. I don't want to be a show off. So don't make me put myself out there. So so that you can imagine there's a problem, isn't there? Because there's a certain type of person that doesn't put themselves out there. We only hear from the visibles going, oh, let me tell you my opinion. Tell you what we're going to do. This is the vision. This is the roadmap to 2030. We don't need any more, AI, or we don't need any more in diversity groups or whatever. And this isn't political, but it's just, I'm not a political person, but what I do believe in is talent. I believe in talent sharing themselves more. I believe in unearthing some of these invisible superheroes. My mission is to get the people that you don't always hear from, particularly if they've got ideas, they've got a bit of spark, they've got a bit of sass, they've got a bit of vision, they've got something interesting to say. I want to hear from them.
Yeah, instead of
the same people.
Only those who put themselves out there, right? Esther, you are such a gift, and you have figured out why most of the population doesn't get seen, right? And it's a choice, but it's not a choice that was necessarily made consciously, right? I think that people chose to be behind the scenes because it felt more comfortable or whatever. Like, I think back to my kids and all of their cousins. We used to always go to the beach together, and the kids ranged in age, maybe like a 5 to 6 year gap between the kids that would put on these shows and that every group of cousins has always done, right? But one of the girls, Mason, was always in charge of the show, right? She was always the behind the scenes. She orchestrated and she told the other kids what to do, but she was always behind the scenes. And watching her do that, she belonged up front, but she didn't have that confidence yet. And now she is able to be up front because somewhere along the line, somebody pulled out some confidence in her, which is what you brilliantly do. And I would call that productive joy.
Productive joy.
Yes, I would call it productive joy when you get to the point where you can pull out the talent in others. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, Esther. And my favorite question to ask my peeps is, if you had to define productive joy, how would you define it?
Gosh, I mean, it's funny, productive joy, I like being productive. I mean, I was a producer. I like producing things. I like to be efficient. I like to make things happen. And when I am being productive and even writing or preparing for this, that gives me joy. I think it's when you're in flow. I think it's when you're doing what you like to do and you're in flow. And I mean, there's lots of definitions for being in flow, and it's kind of a thing now. It's a thing.
It is a
Being
thing.
in flow. Yeah, I mean, we're in flow now.
For sure. That is for sure.
We are in flow. We're in productive joy. We're in the productive joy sweet spot right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I think productive joy is. Doing what you do, making things happen, being productive, producing a show or producing a chocolate cake.
Which you did for your son. That makes you, wait a minute, what do we call it? A domestic goddess. That makes you
I'm a domestic goddess. Well, when I say that, it's very much,
tongue in
I'm
cheek.
not really.
I understand. I am also a domestic goddess.
Are you? Good for you. I bet you are. You seem really productive to me. So I love being productive. I mean, I would say this is why I was drawn to you and your podcast, because, I'm kind of people, maybe my kids even call me a workaholic. No, I like working. I like producing stuff. I like writing. I like playing my ukulele. I like to create things. I can't help it. It's just the way I'm wired.
It's the way you're wired, and to take things full circle, going back to being neurodivergent and having those ADHD tendencies, you don't sit still well, right? And so when you're sitting still, now I did recently hear something that, we were taught at a young age, that when you were not producing something, you were lazy. And everything has to be about, what am I accomplishing right now? And I'm not accomplishing anything if I'm sitting on the couch. But the reality is there's some balance there. There has to be some rest. So you have to eventually, and I'm terrible at rest. Don't take any advice from me. But I think what I'm hearing is, one, productive joy is that flow state when you don't feel like you're working, but you are producing something, right? Like you are creating, and that's probably playing your ukulele or doing something for others because it doesn't feel like work. And when we are constantly in that state, eventually we have to recharge somehow, some way. And that's what you're also helping people do, is to discover their unique genius, figure out what their talents are, and then run with that, recognizing that you can't be in a dead run all the time. You have to, at some point, just take a breath and go, okay, here's what I'm doing. And everybody needs to find you, Esther. Everybody needs a little more Esther Stanhope in their life. So how would somebody find you if they wanted to reach out and say, I need you to make me visible?
I will, please do reach out. Well, I'm easy to find because I've got a funny name, Esther Stanhope, Esther, Esther. If you just put me into any search engine, I do come out not relatively near the top now.
You do.
Also, LinkedIn, I've got a LinkedIn profile. It's Esther Stanhope, the Impact Guru, because I specialize in personal impact. It's an impact. I give people impact. I help people to speak, help them to pitch. So I'm pretty easy to find. LinkedIn, or just search me up, and definitely get in touch, because it's very easy to get in touch with me. You can do it on the contact form, or you can do it on LinkedIn. Please do link in with me. I would love to hear from you, or the comments for your podcast. I'm sure you would you'd throw people in my 100%. Direction if they ask you, and I'll be in the notes to this very podcast, which is Productive Joy, and it's very joyful indeed.
Fun. I know. And Esther, I know that we could keep going and going because there's so many things we could talk about. And I also know that most people would lose interest. And so we don't want that. So we want to leave on a high. Are you willing to answer some rapid fire questions for me?
Oh, gosh, yes, of course I am. Am I? Of course.
Okay. Well, these make me happy because they give me a lot of insight into who you are. So are you ready? First question.
I'm ready.
What is your definition of fun?
Oh, it's the dopamine hit. But if you want something physical, probably jumping into a rooftop pool just because I'm quite sort of scared and it gives me joy jumping into water.
So you like a little bit of adventure and a little bit of, okay, this is scary, but
as you could hear, it's a rooftop pool. It's not like the rapids. It's not like of wild water. It's like,
And just because you're on the rooftop does not mean that you're going to fall over said rooftop. So I love it. Well, you should come to our area. We have quite a few of them on our beaches. So that would be an option for you here.
Yeah.
How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
I know when I feel confident in myself and I don't feel worried, and cynical Cyril is not on my shoulder and I'm backing myself, and I actually feel as if I've got a mission. So when I feel like I have a mission, I'm here to help people. I'm here to enjoy this event, and I feel grateful to be, when I think I'm really grateful to be here.
Yeah.
That's when I know I'm being authentic, when I'm not sort of worrying about, oh no, what are they going to think of me and all that kind of stuff. When I really sort of focus on what I'm doing for others, that's when I know it's authentic.
I love that. I love that. That's perfect. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
On my worst days, I go back to basics. I think, I do a bit of yoga in the morning and a few exercises at the bottom of my bed. I light my candle, which I never used to light the candle because I thought I might be wasting this beautiful candle. And I've realized
I could buy another one.
right? Which is crazy. So even on a good day now, I light my candle. I've got this beautiful candle and it's oud and sandalweed or whatever it is. Sandalwood and oud, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Oh, nice.
And it's quite an expensive one. And I always ask for expensive candles at Christmas. So I light my candle. It really smells really good. And then I sit there, and if it's a bad day, I make myself sometimes. And this is quite late in life. And I'm not a hippie. Yeah, quite late in life, I've kind of found that go back to basics, right? We are lucky. I am lucky to be here. I can walk, and I had a bad knee recently. I realized, wow, if I couldn't walk, I would really be so unhappy. I can walk. My kids are all right. It can be stressful, but really I'm lucky to be stressed because I'm able to do this. I'm lucky enough to be able to be stressed about work because I've got clients. I'm lucky. And get back to basics. And sometimes I even go back to, can I breathe? Oxygen? Yes. Have I got water? Yes. Oxygen and water. Come on, get real. There are awful things going on in the world, but I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And so that as I kind of set myself up for the day, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I heard in your last two answers, gratitude, right? Like being grateful for the things that you have and recognizing that joy is a choice and I can look for the good or the bad. They're both always there, but I'm going to look for the good. And lighting your candle and recognizing that centers you is a perfect example of taking what could be bad and turning it into good. Not that everything's butterflies and bubbles. Nobody's saying that. I think it's more about No, it is not. There are no butterflies nor bubbles, but I can look for the good. And I think that there's power in that. Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Esther, whether it's telling us about cynical Cyril, maybe we need to name ours, but we all have that little brat on our shoulder that is telling us all the wrong things, or becoming visibly brilliant and recognizing that it's okay to put yourself out there. There's a big difference between showing off and sharing. And just the recognition of when we're in flow, we are full of joy, right? And that joy can be productive. All of those were beautiful nuggets, but people are going to hold on to one. So what's the one major thing you want people to remember today?
I'd like you to remember, if you're listening to this, that if you are talking about yourself or you're sharing a story, you are not showing off. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. We want to hear your thoughts and your feelings and your insights. So share, not like Cher the singer, it's share and share alike. And was it caring and sharing? Share yourself, please. We want to hear from you.
We absolutely do. So listeners, this was a masterclass in owning who you are and being willing to put yourself out there. So every day that we listen to Productive Joy, I challenge you to do something. You can't just listen. If that's all you do, then it's just passive and it was kind of a waste of 30 minutes. And I don't believe in wasting your time. So I need you to pick something that Esther said and I need you to do something with it. And I think the biggest one for today is to go share who you are and your unique genius and put yourself out there, be a little more visibly brilliant. Go get her book, look her up. She's fantastic. And ultimately figure out a way today to turn fun into action. Yay!